Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. Wednesdays, during the Noon Report, we tackle the tough topics facing today's families with licensed mental health counselor Christopher Anderson. And Chris, something that isn't always addressed during this stressful time of the year is the health of our marriages. And we're going to get into that topic today.
Very true, Brandon. And yes, as a counselor, I've been working with some marriages lately in my practice that have been experiencing both normal or expected stressful situations for marriages, but also other stressors that aren't always figured into the equation.
All right, now let me guess here. Might an ongoing global pandemic be one of them?
It just might be, Brandon. Yeah, the pandemic has caused additional pressures to be placed on marriages that aren't normally experienced, but during the holidays especially, we know that the demands on our time and our energy ramp up for a couple of months. And of course, it's in all good intentions, often shaped by our insatiable appetite for that Hallmark Christmas movie experience. But being married is hard work, no matter how you slice it. I mean, with our expectations for that perfect holiday experience, this can flat out be unenjoyable or even downright miserable if we're not careful.
So what can couples do to help maintain the health of their marriages during this time of year, Chris?
Well, recognize the importance of addressing the marriage directly. And if you're plugged into a small group, then again, it's just an idea, but take turns watching each other's children so that married couples can get out for dinner or an evening out together. You don't need to be out for 4 hours, of course, but a nice leisurely dinner at a favorite restaurant and or a walk about town to enjoy the lights is a nice way of just spending time together. Or if you're at home, just turn off the internet completely for a few hours. After the kids go to bed, grab a cup of hot chocolate and just talk or watch the snow fall outside. Another idea is to utilize local resources such as parks or outdoor areas for winter walks and hikes. But a word of caution, of course, don't use this time that you're setting aside for your marriage to catch up on running errands or Christmas shopping or the likes of that. That will actually work against you and add more stress. So this is supposed to be a time that you spend with one another, focusing on your relationship. You could even go out with another couple for dinner and follow that up with a drive around by yourselves to just enjoy the lights of the season. But it's most important to recognize that you're doing this for the health of your marriage.
Well, you mentioned the pandemic. What additional stressors is this adding?
Well, if you have children especially, you know that at any moment you may be wondering if they'll be in school tomorrow or the next day. You may be needing to be more engaged in their learning process because of online schooling or sudden disruptions in routines. And this becomes stressful for everybody, not just mom and dad, but also for the kids involved. So the message here is pretty simple. This added stress can accelerate or accentuate an already crumbling marriage if it's not addressed. So intentionally setting aside that time to just simply be with your spouse and just talk about, it doesn't have to be anything heavy duty. It can be anything lighthearted or just whatever it is. But just spending time with your spouse is very important right now.
And Chris, I'm sure that extended family influences that may not be healthy continue to make it difficult as well, especially this time of year.
Oh, it absolutely does. And I think that we can all relate to difficulties from extended family interactions to one degree or another. They're not obviously all as bad as some of the Christmas movies out there that come to mind. But, you know, your marriage needs to be your strongest component of that all-important support system, Brandon, that you and I have talked about so frequently in these segments. And a stronger marriage, it really is part of God's design for folks to help weather the threats that Satan tries to throw at us, regardless of the time of the year.
Any final words, Chris?
Sure. If you're in a marriage that is already on shaky ground and you feel that you've passed that point where you don't believe you can work things out sufficiently with your spouse, don't hesitate to reach out to a counselor or a family therapist, or at the very least, talk to your pastor. Pastors can sometimes also offer some additional support that might be very encouraging and beneficial to your marriage.
You've been listening to another edition of Real Answers with Christopher Anderson. It airs Wednesdays during the Noon Report. We tackle the tough topics facing today's families with Christian counselor Christopher Anderson.